Well, hello everybody who's listening to us today. My name is Mandy and I work for Lincolnshire YMCA, but the just Lincolnshire arm of that, which is the equality side. And I'm lucky enough today to have been speaking with the Staying Safe Working Group. And for those of you who don't know what that is, I'll elaborate slightly. They are a group made up of people with either learning difficulties or autism, along with their supporters. And we administer that group, for want of a better expression. So we meet bi-monthly and we talk about all things that can keep us safe, and that might range from the latest scam that we need to avoid right the way through to some police initiatives, and we're advising them on what is the best way to take it forward. The four people I'm going to be talking to this morning are all employed by Voiceability to be speak out leaders, and a speak out leader is somebody who can go along to an organisation, for example a hospital, and talk in absolute authority about what it is for them as a person with either learning difficulties or autism to access the services, so that they can then use that information to make it better. So this morning we're actually going to be talking about mate crime, so fake friends. And along with me are Michelle and Trent, David and Rosemary, who have been kind enough to tell us their stories about how they've been taken advantage of due to their vulnerabilities, when they believe that the people that they're actually, in inverted commas, friends with, turn out not to be. I'm lucky enough at the moment to be able to have a conversation with Michelle, who's going to share with us some of her stories about when she's been taken advantage of. And those of you that are listening will be able to learn from this, as I have today. And Michelle, you and I have had some really good conversations about how things might have happened in the past that have made you very unhappy for whatever reason, and how that might have been around people who weren't who they pretended to be. And I'm really interested in you talking to me about the time you were at Boston.
Yep. When I was at Boston, I had a really bad housemate that actually really took advantage of me. And she decided to basically just bully me and just decided to take advantage of me, and just basically wanted to pick on one person. And then I was like, no, enough was enough. So I just decided to move out.
And it made you really unhappy at the time, didn't it?
Yes, it made me really unhappy. It made me have like suicidal thoughts nearly, and then self-harming myself. And it made my mental health go just really bad. And it made me feel like I just didn't want to live there anymore.
And am I right in thinking that at one point she accused you of stealing money?
Yes, the organisation actually thought I stole some money, but I was like, no, I didn't. And then I actually stuck up for myself eventually. I told the manager how I felt.
Which is not easy to do, is it?
No, not when you have anxiety, and not when you don't have the right organisation helping you.
So you did very well doing that. And now how lovely it is to see you settled and in a much happier place.
I feel much positive, and I feel much more happier where I am.
You did at the time talk to the people who were in charge of your housing, didn't you? Did they handle it very well?
They didn't handle it very well, because I had some threatening letters saying that I was the one that was shouting at the organisation person. And I was like, no. And I had 3 letters, and they said if I didn't behave myself then or adjust my tone, it means that I had to, basically I would be kicked out of the house.
So in terms of the investigation they did, was probably not as well done as you would have hoped, so it was a bit limited?
It was a bit limited, and it was like they just didn't want to know me. They just wanted to know one side of the story and then didn't believe me.
And I believe, am I right in saying in the end you spoke with your parents and your social worker?
Yes, and I decided for my own benefit to move and to actually look somewhere else and actually just be like, okay, let's move out. Let's just find somewhere a whole lot nicer.
Yeah. And that's where you are now, which is fabulous.
Yes.
But at the time, I think they did apologise to you after they'd made a proper investigation. Am I right in saying that?
They apologised. They said they should have been there sooner and they should have dealt with it as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So for yourself, that person started off as your friend.
Yes.
And how sad it is when you then eventually find out that your friend isn't what you thought. Is that how you felt?
I felt really depressed. I felt like I wanted to cry and just felt like I didn't want to be there anymore. She made me feel isolated about myself. And
you were very strong, Michelle, to deal with that, and I'm really pleased that the outcome has been really positive. If somebody else found themselves in that position, what would your advice to them be?
Talk to your social worker or talk to the organisation or talk to a trusted friend that will help you out.
Fabulous. That's really, really good advice. Thank you for that. And I believe there was a separate incident, and we don't need to go into the detail, but there was an incident when you felt strong enough to call the police.
Yes.
Just talk me through that and how positive that outcome was for you.
How positive it was. We had an incident at my new place where one of our housemates was kicking off. So I decided enough was enough. Let's call the police to get some advice. And I was like really grateful that I did. And they said you did the right thing. And they came out because of my anxiety as well.
So when you were talking to them on the phone, you were able to tell them, or they were able to detect that you were anxious?
Yes, they could tell, and they could hear that I had all my friends around.
Yeah.
And they could tell that I was trying to help one of my mates out and my mate was helping me out. So I decided, look, let's get them out for my safety.
Yes. Again, what, an amazing, strong thing you did to resolve that. And it's really pleasing to hear that the police supported you with that. So that, in itself is a really good advert for other people to feel that they can call the police.
Yes.
If they're feeling anxious or something, that they're going to be supported.
Yeah, it feels like the police actually understood and they actually came out and they played some games with us afterwards.
That's really good. That's great, Michelle. Thank you ever so much for spending the time talking to us today. You telling your real life stories really helps other people to understand when things are happening to them, that they're not on their own, that there are places that can go to for advice or support, and there are really positive outcomes like there's been for yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Trent, you and I have talked quite a lot about how you cope.
Yep.
And one of the things that I found really quite an interesting comment you made to me was about you masking when you're with other people so that they don't pick up on anything.
Yeah, I had to do that quite a lot of my life because I feel the world isn't proving disabilities, but some people are still not understanding. And also at the moment, because of social media, there's people with disabilities playing characters, and I don't want to be compared to those people. If that makes sense.
It does, yeah, it makes absolute sense. And that makes you feel better in yourself.
Yeah.
And I think on one of those occasions when you felt that your disability wasn't recognised, was when you were doing one of your gigs.
Yeah, I was doing one of my gigs, and this lady come and sat on my table, and she was talking. She was pointing out people that obviously had learning difficulties, but she failed to recognise the person in front of her.
Mm-hmm. And also it concerned you because you felt it was all quite unprofessional and judgmental.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, and I didn't think it was very professional of her, because obviously she said she's supposed to be a special needs teacher, so I didn't think that was very professional of her. Now,
another occasion when somebody took advantage of your really kind nature, I think, Trent, was somebody moved in with you when he thought it was only going to be a temporary.
I thought I was doing a good thing, and this lad moved in, and I thought it was only going to be, it'll only be for like 1 or 2 weeks, 2 weeks max maybe. And 2 weeks turned into a month and a half, and he was drinking, and obviously he had no money to buy the drink, so I felt pressured to buy the drink and drink it with him because it was the easiest thing to do at the point. And then his partner moved in, and basically she stayed on the sofa. She didn't wash or have a bath. I showed her where the bathroom was. I said, you can go in there and lock the door, and she chose not to. Eventually he got with someone else, and eventually they both left my flat.
How did that make you feel?
It made me feel not very good, to be honest, because like I thought I was trying to do something good, and it just turned into a total total rubbish show, really. I didn't feel welcome in my own lounge. So that was a room of the house I didn't really want to go into, or a room in my flat I didn't really want to go into. So I stayed in my room, and it just didn't make me feel good after I felt that I was trying to do something good, and it just wasn't good.
Mm. What sort of state did they leave your flat in?
It was rubbish all over, empty bottles. I know I should have tidied, and I did at some points, but it just kept getting back to the same state. I thought, what's the point?
Mm. And these people who were your so-called friends at the time, do you see anything of them now?
No.
And is that...
I see some of the lad now, but he says we'll offer to catch up, but when I offer him to come to a cafe and I'll just buy my drinks, he said he just doesn't respond. Mm. So that says all I need to know, really.
Yeah. Because it's quite interesting. I mean, this whole discussion really is around mate crime and fake friends.
Yeah.
And it's hard, isn't it, to be able to see who are real friends and who aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you're kind-natured and you offer, somebody temporary accommodation when they're on their uppers, if you like, but they take advantage of you like that.
Yeah.
Tell me about the time with your PlayStation.
I had a PlayStation 4, and I made this new friend through a girlfriend I had at the time, and I thought he was my friend because he kept coming round, and I provided him with soft drinks while he played my console. And one day I decided I needed some money, so I went to the nearest cash-in sort of place, and I sold my PS4, and he was due round to come round the next day. He said, Peter, am I okay to come round? I said, yeah, you're okay to come round. So he turned up, and he goes straight to the living room where the PS4 was meant to be, and he goes, where is it? I said, well, I've sold it. It's not here. He goes, you're joking, aren't you? And within 10 minutes, magically got a phone call and had to go. So and I've never seen him since.
Yeah, such a shame, isn't it?
Not really, because at the end of the day, he showed me the people I don't want, people like that I don't need in my life.
So it's really good that you can see a positive coming out of these things, isn't it?
Yeah.
So just to talk a little bit about mate crime.
Yeah.
And how we stay safe from people who pretend to be our friends.
Yeah.
And we've talked with some of our colleagues and friends as well, haven't we, this morning about things that have happened to them in the past.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, wouldn't you agree, that we need to put it into context that most friends really are friends. And they care about you and they treat you fairly. But some people, as we've heard, might pretend to be your friend, but then treat you badly.
Yeah.
I'll just give you a few little examples as well that we've been picking up, without going into all the details. But a young man called Tony, his friends always pick on him and they call him nasty names, and they tell him he has to do what they say, otherwise they won't be his friend. And they ask him to do things like shoplifting or buy cigarettes or alcohol for underage people. And And Tony eventually realised what was happening and went and told somebody about it. But whilst it was happening, it was an unpleasant time for him. And then there's a young lady by the name of Samira who lives on her own in her own flat. And a bit like you and your experience, her friends are always coming round, but they leave her house and her flat really messy. And they eat all the food and never bring anything themselves. And, it must be very difficult for her to recognise that those friends really aren't her friends at all.
Yeah. Because it's difficult. Sometimes it's difficult, even when you do realise it's difficult to turn it down, because sometimes you've got nobody close by. And at that point, I didn't have no one close by, any family close by, so it was difficult. I felt lonely, and
absolutely,
it was a really difficult point in my life.
Yeah. And then there's a young man called Giuseppe who got paid every Friday. Now, this might ring bells with you. And his friends always come to see him on payday and they all go down the pub.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. And who buys all the drinks? Giuseppe.
Yeah.
And that's a really sad state of affairs. And I know in the past you and I have talked about that because you've experienced something similar.
Yeah.
And we said at the time, when it's a pub that you used regularly, and that's happening quite often, what a shame that the staff in the pub don't recognise that it's you that's buying all the drinks.
I just think some staff don't care. They just see the money come over the bar. They don't see anything else.
Don't see beyond that.
I don't see beyond that.
Also, a story we've heard from one of our friends was about somebody borrowing his phone all the time.
Yeah.
And using up police credit and saying, "Oh, I'll get you some credit. I'll give you some money back." Never happens.
Yeah.
But then when the phone's being borrowed another time, there's always a really, really serious reason for needing to borrow the phone at that very moment. So that can put you in a spot, can't it, really? These are all things we need to watch out for, though. I mean, what we're doing 100%. With this podcast today is talking about this, so it alerts other people about, perhaps being a little bit more alert to some of the situations we might find ourselves in.
Yeah.
And then there was a lady called Susan who didn't drive herself, had no means of getting into town to do any shopping, but had a so-called friend who used to say, "Well, I'll give you a lift," which on the face of it was really nice. But it was only 3 or 4 miles away and she used to charge her 30 quid. Oh. So it was a little bit more than a taxi service, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
So these are the sorts of things that we want people to watch out for.
Yeah.
And all of these things need to be reported. So we would encourage people to tell somebody. Who do you think we need to be telling about these things?
If you don't feel comfortable to go to the police, maybe report it to a trusted friend or a staff member at a community centre, or if you've got a support worker or a parent or carer.
Mm-hmm. And I know when we heard the story earlier on in this recording from Michelle, she was talking about a really positive experience she had when she called the police to some disturbance at her home, hadn't she?
Yeah.
And I think, we need to say to people that is a really important way to go. If you're concerned about something that's been happening to you, then if you're in danger at the time, then ring 999. 100%. Or failing that, later on in the day, if you want to report it, then ring 101.
Yeah.
Because you and I have talked about this in the past, that sometimes we maybe don't feel it's serious enough.
Yeah.
Well, actually it is. And it's really important for the police and councils, if it involves something, in a council perspective, for them to have the bigger picture, because what might seem to us to not be something that we would probably just ring on as it stands alone, but to be able to report that, there might be another 10 people who've reported something similar.
Yeah.
And it all forms a bigger picture.
Yeah. Another true story is when I was down south, I used to live in a I don't think I'll say the organisation for this one. Let's say shared housing accommodation.
Yeah.
And I lived with another lad, and we had rooms, and there was a living support worker. And the support worker was only there, contracted to be there so many hours because he had another job somewhere else, a support job somewhere else. So he had like sort of 2 jobs. And during the time he was out, the other lad decided to invite these, what should we call them, lads around. And they decided to have a party. And the party went very wrong. They trashed his room, and unfortunately I ended up in hospital as well. So yeah, it wasn't the best of times.
No.
So I feel that like myself, he just wanted friends, and they turned out definitely not to be his friends.
How did you get rid of the party goers?
Eventually, they departed after, because obviously once I was injured, the police were sort of, well, I think somebody called the police because they could see how, they could obviously hear how out of hand things were getting, because there must have been witnesses to my assault, which resulted in an injury, and I had to go to hospital for that. So, and then obviously while I was waiting for the ambulance, the police turned up, so obviously they departed then.
What a shame.
And I felt it a shame because, like myself, this lad wanted friends, and it turned out to be nothing but not friends. And when he got back, he told me his room was trashed, and his fish that he'd had for a while, they'd got rid of that, and
dear.
And they'd stolen one of his jumpers, and it was just not good.
Dear.
And he came back in a sorry state as well.
Did he?
He was rather what's the word, polite way can use, drunk.
Dear. So, what message would you want people hearing this if they're a little bit concerned about things that might be happening to them? What's the one thing you would like them to learn from what's happened to you?
If you're in doubt about something, report it, and if possible, remove yourself from the situation, even if it means walking out your own property, because that will give you the ability to report it away from the property.
Yeah. And now you're in a really good place.
Yeah, I'm in a really good place now, yeah.
And we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us really about this, because without hearing the true stories from yourselves, nobody's going to know all of these things that go on. And we all take people at face value.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, just a reminder that most people are nice.
Yeah.
But we just need to be wary of the fact that...
Be very careful, yeah.
Yeah, we do. Thank you, Trent.
I'd advise always to meet people in public and only let people in the space that you trust.
Great advice. Thank you. So, David, you and I have worked together for a long time on the Staying Safe Working Group, and I know that over the years you've been really, really vocal and really, really supportive with Just Lincolnshire and with myself in particular to raise awareness against hate crime. And lots of things happened during lockdown as well that you and I have talked about since then.
Yeah.
But I know recently something that's happened to you before occurred again when you were walking down the street. Maybe just talk to us a little bit about how you are, your balance.
Yeah. I struggle with my balance. I walked to work about 2 years ago. I walked down the one street. Older man walked opposite. So I had to me say, are you drunk? Are you drunk? Drunk. I said, I'll carry on walking. I thought to myself, no, I struggle with my balance. I walk to work. if a worker think I'm drunk, they's going to say you got to go home or sack me. Yeah, that's it.
And that's on the back of, we were talking about people, how sometimes people just judge you based on what they see without thinking about what might be beyond that.
Yes.
And your other vulnerabilities. And that is a really valid point, that you have balance issues. People didn't think David might have issues with his balance because of A, B or C. Somebody whose business it wasn't anyway thought that you would be drunk.
Yeah.
And compounded by the fact that you were on your way to work and you were concerned that work would think you were coming in drunk. So, that's something else we just need to bear in mind, really, isn't it, when we're talking to anybody about prejudging what they see in front of them. And again, how that could translate into being taken advantage of. And I think also you had somebody get quite aggressive with you recently when they were asking you to contribute.
Yeah, when I walked to Carper, get some supper, on the way back, older woman got a can of a beer in her hand, started in the corner doorway of a Carper. When I go home, I said hello because I'm that sort of person. She asked me, haven't you got any money? And I said, no, but I have got money, but I'm not giving. I know it's only 10p, but she said, go back home, but not like that. But very straight, but I'm not got used to that because I need to be professional. Yeah. I thought to myself, oh, okay, I will.
Yes. So she actually swore at you and told you to go away.
Yeah.
I get that. Thank you for being professional.
Yeah.
But that's really important as well because, somebody yet again was about to take advantage of you.
Yeah.
And when you say no, they don't respond in the way that we would want them to. What do we think? Because we've, all of us, looked at films this morning, haven't we, around mate crime and what might raise the profile and what might be done to help people to report. What things do you think are important to protect people?
I think generally raising awareness through like videos on social media could be a good way.
I think stay safe and grip. They go in on. I know. I'm happy to do it with a mother to go in to school, different school in the Lincolnshire or college or any day center, try to promote awareness.
Yeah, that's excellent. I'm going to ask Rosemary to say something that she said this morning. And we were all really proud of Rosemary's expression this morning. So you said, if you have a voice, use it, didn't you? So I'm going to talk to you now and you're going to say that. So Rosemary, thank you ever so much for coming and talking to us today. And you're a person who listens a great deal to what's being said around you. But we heard you say something this morning that was really, really important. Would you mind just saying it for us?
If you have a voice, use it.
Fabulous. So Rosemary's ethos is, if you have a voice,
use it.
Fabulous.
I say to everybody at Hastings.
Everybody at Hastings.
Use it.
Use it. Thank you, Rosemary. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No.
That's great that you said that. Fabulous.
Also, I like you what Rosemary said. If you got foresight, you see it. I like it though.
Thank you ever so much for sharing those things with us. It's really important that as a group and as yourselves individually, you're able to share these stories so that other people realise that they're not isolated when it happens to them. So thank you. It's really much appreciated.